In this lesson, we will explore how grit influences performance and how to improve and rehearse grit over time. Famously championed by Dr. Angela Duckworth, grit is defined as passion and perseverance for long-term goals and is composed of 4 psychological characteristics. It can be defined as a positive, non-cognitive trait based on an individual's perseverance of effort combined with the passion for a particular long-term goal or end state. Dr. Angela Duckworth famously studies grit as a personality trait, and grit is actually a better predictor of success than intellect or IQ. Those who scored higher on the grit scale are more likely to advance further in the National Spelling Bee, have higher GPAs at Ivy League institutions, and are less likely to drop out at West Point Military Academy. In sports, grit can be phrased as the following. It can be phrased as being tough, resilient, having stamina, being stubborn, being tenacious, or having a stick-to-itiveness. Before we get into the 4 psychological components that make up grit, meet Eddie. Eddie is one of Miles' teammates, exceptionally talented but not particularly competitive, and doesn't plan on playing in college. Eddie brings significant strengths to the team, but tends to throw in the towel in the face of adversity. When we discuss these 4 strategies for training grit, let's keep Eddie in mind, and we'll revisit him at the end of the lesson. How do you promote and foster grittiness for someone who doesn't necessarily feel the need to expand their resiliency in the long term? Training grit includes these 4 essential practices: interest, capacity to practice, purpose, and hope. Interest is defined as finding your passion. A 2014 study indicated more than 2/3 of adults were not engaged at work. Research has shown time and time again, we know that people are happier and perform better at work when they are interested. We also understand that this statistic can also relate to sports and student athletes. Capacity to practice can also be defined as deliberate practice. It is a more intense form of practice that cannot be practiced for longer than 60 or 90 minutes. There are 4 characteristics to deliberate practice: having stretch goals, full concentration and effort required for that 60 to 90 minute period, seeking immediate and informative feedback, and refining technique through repetition and introspection. Capacity to practice can be referenced within the 10,000 hour rule, i.e., the metric that it takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice to become a master at something. Purpose. Purpose is when your interest and your passion are combined with the desire to help others. It is about finding deeper meaning, a bigger why for what you chose to do. Dr. Angela Duckworth's definition of purpose is the intention to contribute to the well-being of others. This can often be the difference between a job and a calling, and can help with motivation and the ability to stick with tasks when times get tough. And finally, hope. Hope is the expectation that tomorrow will be a better day. Pete Carroll, the Seattle Seahawks head coach, says that the world trains people to be pessimistic. One of the most important things I must do is make sure my players and staff believe that tomorrow will be better than today. Dr. Angela Duckworth refers to hope as grit is dependent on a different kind of hope. It rests on the expectation that our own efforts can improve our future. The opposite of hope is hopelessness. Suffering doesn't necessarily lead to hopelessness. Rather, it happens when one doesn't feel like they have any control over their suffering. Lack of control over our environment can lead to learned helplessness. Conversely, it is also important to know that hope can lead to learned optimism. The use of positive self-talk often comes in handy during these times, and certainly the notion of a growth mindset is even more powerful during challenging times. Positive self-talk contributes to hope, remaining at high levels, leading one to become grittier over time. Keeping these 4 practices in mind, let's come back to Eddie. Eddie likely scores the highest on interest. He truly enjoys baseball and spending time with his teammates and coaches. His capacity to practice is likely lower. Since he doesn't have a strong purpose or long-term vision for his baseball career, you may be able to motivate a stronger capacity to practice by introducing new drills or skills that he can focus on for extended periods of time. You are also likely to tap into Eddie's hope and a little bit of purpose by referencing team goals and tapping into an emotional energy that will improve his overall grittiness, particularly when times are tough.